Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell, you ready for the bombshell? This ain't fake news. I was there. Not in the Philippines. But I moved to Utah in August 1996. Graduated from the University of Utah with a dual bachelor's and a minor. And my first day looking for work, I think it was the third business, was the church's human resources. And they hired me on the spot, whereas the other two had called me a couple days later to tell me I was hired. Said, sorry, I got a job. I worked in order processing, and I knew that I was brand new. You don't start at the top. Many people refuse to start at the bottom of a business and work their way up. I knew very well I had no choice but to start at the bottom of a business and work my way up. I was doing Paleo-Hebrew research, and that obviously doesn't pay, or at least back then it didn't. It does pay a little bit now on Amazon. And so, yeah, I needed to get a regular job to try to take care of my young family. The woman formerly called my first wife came down to Utah for the purpose of dumping me off and heading back up to Canada, where she's from, and took the kids. And so, being in a state of shock, life wasn't worth it anymore. And when the business, they literally gave me the job if I wanted it. Promotion, a raise, a huge raise. I turned it down, even though other employees were furious that a brand new worker steps in, and a male worker at that. And so employees tried to sabotage my claim to the job, and I wasn't even going to take it. They wasted their time ruining my reputation there at the business. And so the woman got the job anyway. After working there for a couple years as an order processor, and trying to warn the church not to put in the crane storage unit for the order processing, and refusing to listen to me, and losing $1 million that first year. I was then offered a job over at Beehive Clothing, and I didn't care. Still in a slump, and transferred over to Beehive Clothing, and was in the warehouse, so was able to drive a forklift, and we basically put the boxes from the sewing floor onto pallets and onto the storage, and then supplied the pick line with the garments and robes, mostly garments. The robes usually went to the stores, and so there was those special orders. So the garments were the ones that individual Mormons could order online, or order through the mail, I guess. don't know if there was an online service back then. There was online. It wasn't that old, but the senior manager of Beehive Clothing came back from a trip to the Philippines. We had been, the church had been negotiating with the Philippines to have a clothing manufacturing plant out there in the Philippines, and then they would ship their work to the States, to Beehive Clothing, where we would store it on the shelving racks. And the church's plans were to transfer everything over to distribution warehouse one day, as they upgraded that and put in the crane units. I had redesigned their warehouse after certain key people left who were opposed to trying something new, especially the one guy that worked with me. He had his system was the one that we were using, and so he didn't want some other new guy. Again, everybody has things with new guys coming in and messing up his system, which was the best that they could come up with. To give you an idea how best it was, we were working all 5 days of the weekday, from the total full 8 hours a day, and had to still work on Saturdays as overtime to get caught up on the week. And we had a crew of about 7, and my redesign made it so that all they needed was 2 people for 2 hours. That's it. That's how effective my redesign was, and it was well received by the church, because that's exactly what they wanted to have done, to transfer all of the workers over to the distribution center to work there with the expansion that they made. And so even though the workers were initially concerned that they were going to lose their jobs, it's the church. Nobody's going to lose their job. They force you to quit by being mean to you, which is what happened to me eventually. While we were there, the main boss of Beehive came back from the Philippines, and we had a special meeting in the meeting room. So all packed with the sewers and the warehouse crew, and he gave a little presentation of his trip to the Philippines, and he talked about how we were blessed because we got air conditioning. So apparently it was literally a sweatshop, which is why they call it a sweatshop, is because there's no air conditioning. And he also talked about how the church was hiring children to be sewers there at their manufacturing plant there. And he just chuckled and laughed, saying that children worked there and that it was a sweatshop. And he thought that was funny, and many in the crowd laughed along with him. I sat there just say that. Yes, he did. And so, they justify it by saying that in the Philippines, the economy is so bad there that children have to work in order to take care of the family. And when you hear about the $100 billion from just tithing alone that the church has just been hoarding, and then the church then claims, oh, we're helping the poor and the needy. Apparently not. There are still poor. There are still needy. How can you claim to have hundreds of billions of dollars just sitting around, gaining interest daily, and claim that you're helping the poor and the needy? And on top of that, going outside the United States so that they can get away with child labor sweatshops. It's just appalling. And back then, I just assumed that the head leaders of the church, the prophets, who are on the board of the corporation, were just lied to. That people down low purposely lied so as to present a positive report to the leaders rather than giving a negative report. Mormons get that teaching from Moses when he sends out the two spies, Joshua and well, I guess it's 4 spies, wasn't it? And they go into the land of Canaan, and the 2 guys come back and say that, oh man, those guys are so big, they're so powerful, we have no chance against them. And then of course Joshua and the other guy, is it Ezra? I can't remember his name, but maybe it is, I don't know. But they come back and say, land of milk and honey, it's awesome. We can just go right in and take it. We are that powerful. We have the Lord on our side. And that's what justifies the church members for lying to their priesthood leaders, to the top prophet leaders even. And so that concept of the leaders of the church are in a bubble comes from that, because people purposely lie to their leaders in order to present a favorable report, which then backfires when the leaders get the actual reports that show the consequences of the implementation that they used of losing $1 million for putting in a PICC line storage unit. You can't hide those. When you lose money, you lose money. And so, I didn't believe that the leaders of the church were involved with any of this. That it was other people that were involved. Turns out I was wrong. Because I put it to the test and confirmed with my test. That's how you find truth. You develop a theory based on physical evidence and test it to see if it can be replicated. I did that, and I found out the truth. And so that's the bombshell. The church is making lots of money by being inhumane. Not just by refusing charity, but by forced labor and child labor even. I'm sure they're most likely elderly if they're able to live that long in such horrendous conditions. So, there you go.